You know that moment when the laughter dies? When the joke isn't funny anymore. It happened at a family barbecue. My sister was mocking my fake Navy job, again. Her husband, a decorated Navy SEAL, was laughing along. Until he heard my call sign. Until he realized the woman they'd all been belittling for years was the same anonymous pilot who saved his entire team's life in a storm that should have killed them all. And then he turned to my sister, his voice like ice, and said the two words that changed everything. Apologize. Now. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been the quiet one in the family, the one whose dreams were treated as jokes, whose service was mistaken for a desk job, then you know the ache of invisible sacrifice. You know the fire of a quiet fury, burning for years. This is a story for anyone who's ever had to prove their worth, not with words, but with actions that echo louder than any laugh. It's a story of hidden honor, family betrayal, and a revenge so quiet, so perfectly justified, it didn't need a single shout. Stick with me. This one hits different. And if you know that feeling, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, quiet strength, I'll know you get it. The Keller family barbecues were a special kind of battlefield. Picture it, a big house near the Outer Banks. The smell of charcoal and too much cheap beer. Country music trying, and failing, to cover the sound of subtle knives. I was Monica Keller. The quiet sister. The one nursing a soda at the picnic table, already wishing I was back in the cockpit of a T-45 trainer, where the rules of engagement made sense. Tara. So what, Monica? You just teach flight sims now, right? Her voice was a trumpet, announcing my humiliation for the whole yard. I looked up. Slow. Calm. No, I said. I fly. The laughter that followed wasn't malicious. It was worse. It was dismissive. Even Dad chuckled. The kind of laugh that pats you on the head and says, "Sure you do, honey." Tara wasn't done. Oh yeah. Fly where? Between the coffee machine and the break room, she crowed. More laughter. I felt my knuckles go white around the soda can. The carbonated fizz was the loudest sound in my world. Across the yard, one person wasn't laughing. Blake. My brother-in-law. A Navy SEAL. He just watched me. That flat, assessing stare that measures a person's mettle before they even speak. I raised my soda in a half salute. He nodded back. An acknowledgement. The first one I'd gotten all night. This was the ritual. Tara, the shining star, the talker, married to real-world heroism. Me, the mystery, the poet spy as she called it, chasing a childhood dream they all thought I'd outgrow. Dad's voice boomed next. Monica, you ever gonna settle down? Get a real job. The word real hit like a low-pressure system. In Dad's world, real meant something he could understand. Boats. Engines. Calluses. Not the silent, digital warfare of a training coordination center. Not the ghostly voice guiding men through a storm. I escaped to the beach. The salt air was a relief. It smelled like freedom, like the open Pacific. I could hear the muffled laughter from the yard. Tara, holding court. The perfect hostess with the perfect SEAL husband. And me, the quiet one. The one people forgot to introduce. But that night, something shifted. The laughter didn't sting. It just sounded small, like the distant hum of a drone. The screen door creaked. Blake's silhouette appeared. You good out here? He asked. I'm fine, I said. He stood beside me, a statue in a SEAL team t-shirt. You don't say much. Only when it matters, I replied. He almost smiled. You're a lot like some pilots I've met. The good ones never brag. He walked back to the noise. But he'd planted a seed. He'd seen me. Not Monica, the little sister. But something else. And for the first time in years, I didn't care about their laughter. I looked at the horizon, where the water met the bruised orange sky, and whispered a promise to the wind. Next time, I won't stay quiet. The next morning, in my sterile Virginia Beach apartment, the silence was a sanctuary. I pulled on my flight suit. It was my armor. The phone buzzed. My flight lead, Renee. You seeing this weather? IFR check might be cancelled. I typed back, figures. Could use a quiet day. Her reply was instant. Since when do you like quiet? Quiet was where the memories lived. I opened a drawer. A forbidden file. Operation Revenant. Lines of text, blacked out. My call sign, Night Warden. The date, March 18th, 2020. Let me take you there. San Clemente Island. A storm like the ocean's fury. I was green. 3rd year in. My job, keep the comms open. Then the radio screeched to life. We've lost visual. Bird 2 is down. Repeat. Bird 2 is down. We have 6 in the water. Static. Panic. Bleeding through discipline. My voice, somehow steady. Copy. Hold vector 240. Follow beacon on my mark. I ran onto the tarmac, the wind trying to tear the hood from my head. The flare gun kicked in my hand. A red streak, a desperate sun in the black. And then, rotor shadows. 2 wounded birds, limping home. When they landed, a seal stumbled out, bleeding from the temple. He looked right at me, through the rain. Who the hell are you? He shouted. Night Warden, I said. He just nodded. We owe you beers for life. He never knew my name. The mission was scrubbed. Classified. I got a handshake. Good work, Keller. You kept your cool. That was it. My greatest victory was a ghost story. Back in the present, at the hangar, Renee found me staring at a trainer jet. You look like someone thinking too loud, she said. Family weekend, I mumbled. You ever feel like this job makes you invisible? She snorted. Honey, the job is invisible. Later, alone, I logged into the Navy portal. I typed 2 words. SEAL coordination. Upcoming joint exercises. And there it was. Instructor, Lieutenant CMR Blake Renshaw. My brother-in-law. A cold, precise smile touched my lips. The universe wasn't just lining up pieces. It was loading the gun. And for the first time, I didn't feel like walking away. The joint training briefing was chaos. SEALs and pilots, a cocktail of ego and jet fuel. The joint training briefing was chaos. SEALs and pilots, a cocktail of ego and jet fuel. And there he was. Blake. In instructor gear, voice calm, commanding. When things go south, we rely on comms, not heroics. His eyes scanned the room. They found me. And paused. Not recognition. Not yet. It was instinct. The ghost was in the room. Blake, during a break you Navy or Air Wing? ME, Naval Flight Coordination. Blake, ever handle live ops? Me, holding his gaze once or twice. Blake, studying me, you sound like you've seen things go bad and kept your voice steady. Me, maybe I just fake it better. He chuckled, low and tired. That's half the job. We ran simulations. Radio drills. His commands, the cadence, the tone, it was a key turning in a lock deep in my memory. Later, over bad diner coffee, he got quiet. Back in 2020. Storm off San Clemente. We lost visual, nearly lost half the team. Someone on comms pulled us back in. Never even knew their name. My throat was sand. Sounds like they did their job. I managed. They did more than that, he said, his voice gravel. They saved 6 families from getting folded flags. He looked out the window, haunted. You ever try to find out who it was? I asked. He shook his head. Classified. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. That night, I stared at the mission file. SEAL Team Bravo 6. Operation Recovery Point. Field Operative, Lieutenant CMR Blake Renshaw. Confirmation. The man whose life I'd helped save was married to the woman who used my career as a punchline. The irony was a cold, hard stone in my gut. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about truth. A truth with a timing fuse. And Blake, he was getting warmer. He invited me to another barbecue. Tara insists, he said. I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. The storm wasn't on the radar, but I could feel it in the air. Deja vu, different yard, same script. String lights, expensive beer, Tara's performative laughter. The jokes started fresh. Fancy talk for air traffic control, right? She quipped. Blake didn't laugh. His hand tightened on his glass. The tension was a wire, pulled taut. No offense, Monica, but flying's got to be easier than combat. Right. No bullets, no mud. I set my fork down. The clink was loud in the sudden quiet. Just crosswinds, instrument failure, and a few dozen people depending on you not to die. Silence. Then Tara, swooping in. She's kidding. Monica always sounds like she's in a movie. Blake's voice cut through, low but sharp. That's enough, Tara. She blinked. What? I was kidding. He didn't raise his voice, but it carried the weight of a command. You don't joke about service you don't understand. The whole yard froze. Conversations died. The crickets stopped. Tara tried to laugh, but it died in her throat. Blake's eyes were locked on me. Not angry, piercing. He was connecting dots faster than a targeting computer. The memory of static. The calm voice in the storm. The quiet woman who never bragged. And then he said it. 2 words. Quiet as a tomb. Revenant one. My call sign. The one from the classified report. The one only the men on that extraction would know. I didn't move. I didn't confirm. I just met his gaze. The years of silence, the invisible service, the family jokes, they all condensed into that one look. Blake turned to Tara. His voice was level. Arctic. Apologize. She was bewildered. For what? For mocking the pilot who saved my team's lives. Her face drained of color. You mean, her? Blake nodded once. The silence wasn't heavy now. It was clean. Surgical. Like the air after a lightning strike. I stood up, smoothed my jacket. All eyes were on me. The invisible sister. The quiet one. I looked at Tara, then at the stunned faces of our family, at Blake's teammates who now looked at me with something like awe. Dinner was great, I said, my voice calm. The same calm from the storm. Then I turned and walked toward the beach, the sound of the ocean washing away a decade of noise. The aftermath was a quiet earthquake. Blake followed me out. He pressed a worn brass coin into my hand. A SEAL challenge coin. Recognition from my team, he said. You earned it the night we didn't die. The engraving read, Honor through silence. Fitting. Back in the yard, the dynamic had shattered. Dad, ashamed, admitted, you never said. I replied, you never asked. Mom had tears of pride. And Tara, she was finally, truly speechless. The weaponization of her own laughter had blown up in her face. Weeks later, at a formal ceremony at NAS Pensacola, I received a Navy commendation. My name, not my call sign, announced for all to hear. In the crowd, my parents, Blake, and his old commanding officer, Captain Roland Butler. Roland found me afterward. You deserved this a long time ago, he said, handing me a faded photo from that night. Better late than never, I replied. The revenge wasn't in the medal. It was in the unveiled truth. It was in Tara's sincere, private apology later. It was in my nephew Evan looking at me not as the weird aunt, but as someone who held the sky. Years later, at another family gathering, the silence was different. It was peaceful. Respectful. Evan, now a young man, held Roland's old coin. You think I'll ever earn one of these? He asked. I looked at him, at my sister setting the table without a hint of mockery, at Blake giving me a knowing nod from the grill. You already did, I said. You just don't know it yet. Some think revenge needs to be loud. Destruction. But sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply the truth. Letting the full weight of who you are and what you've done land, silently, on the consciences of those who underestimated you. It's a justice that doesn't break things. It heals them. It turns mockery into respect, and silence into the most powerful sound of all. Monica's story isn't about glorifying conflict. It's about the quiet resilience of those who serve without fanfare. It's about the karma that comes not from seeking vengeance, but from living with such integrity that when the truth finally emerges, it feels like a natural, correcting force. The real victory wasn't in the apology, it was in reclaiming her own narrative, without ever having to shout. If this story of quiet strength and ultimate vindication gave you that deep, satisfying sense of justice, then do me a favor, smash that like button. It tells the algorithm that stories with depth and heart matter. Subscribe for more epic tales of hidden honor and deserved comeuppance. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated, only to have the truth reveal itself in a spectacular way? Scream your story into the comments below. And for your next dose of catharsis, click the video on screen now. I pretended to be poor at my high school reunion. Their reactions were priceless. Thanks for watching. Remember, sometimes, the quietest people have the most thunderous stories.